Call me Tom.
Tom. Yeah, I didn't know you lived in Fort Greene. I don't want to get more specific than that, but it's just odd to me. I would have thought I would have run into you like sometime.
Where do you? Well, don't tell me where you live, but where do you live?
Well, I'm actually in this weird position right now where I'm looking for a new place. So I'm actively looking at apartments. And but back in about how many years ago? Had to be in 2006 ish, 2005.
That's when I moved in here.
Oh, is that so? This just opened up then? Okay,
the year before.
Okay, yeah. Well, it was that whole period. I was living up the block, closer to Lafayette. I loved it.
Oh, this neighborhood saved my life. I was living in Midtown Manhattan from 1988 to 2006.
Wow.
I was just getting to that point. All the things that had brought me to New York City when I was in my 20s that were the reasons I had moved in were the reasons I was getting pissed off and really needed to get out. Mm-hmm. But I really couldn't. I didn't want to live up the Hudson River in a house or something like that. So I thought, well, I want to be in New York, but I don't. So this has been a life changer for me. The days I don't have to go in, I love.
Yeah. Were you living in the
I was living
50s?
in the East Side in the 50s. Yeah.
Between 5th and 6th?
No, in the East Side, between corner of Second Avenue.
Oh, okay. I worked it right around the corner from the, well, not around the corner per se,
like the City Corps
away.
Center, yeah, like there.
Right by. Did you go to the Palm?
Yeah, of course.
All the time?
Of course.
You had lunch there every day?
I've got my pictures on the wall of the Palm too.
The
Palm
one
2. Over on the West Side. Yeah.
Oh, neat. Yeah, no, because I worked in when I was working in Sony Music. We were over on 55th and Madison, just a couple blocks away from.
Yeah.
And one of our vendors, one of our printers, like always went to the Palm, and he would take us because we were his clients, So we'd have lots of lunches, and the Palm. Became morbidly obese over my years working out. And then we had like a $500-600 a month like expense account in the headier days.
That's nice.
Until it all ended.
I used to go see all the screenings of the Sony Classics releases in that building. Reed Roosevelt, do you remember Reed Roosevelt? He was a publicist at the time. He did Henry Fool, but he also did all of those movies that Sony put out in the 90s. Sony Classics.
I was working in the Sony building while you were coming to the 7th floor and seeing those things, but I wasn't because had nothing to do with I was in the music side of it. So I was up on the 30th floor working. Or I was out to lunch at the Palm or at the Friars Club for a Christmas party or something. I mean, the times were amazing because you'd go to the Friars Club in the mid-'90s when I was working there, and you'd go there because, again, the same guy was a member of the Friars, and so he would have his Christmas party there, or you just go to lunch every so often with him there, and the food was awful. I mean, just really
I wouldn't think it would be very good at it.
But you would be sitting the table next to you, it would be Soupy Sales and Henny Youngman.
Well, when's that going to happen again?
Not anytime soon.
Is Soupy Sales still with us?
No. His son, though, is a very famous drummer and rock drummer, though. Yeah.
That's one thing I've learned tonight, Adam.
Quite. But what a change from in one generation, right?
Yeah, I would think. I don't think the kids know who Soupy Sales is.
Probably not. But he did, getting really off the track here, but that's even really before my time. I think, I don't think he even had a kid show anymore when I was a kid, but.
Me neither, Adam. I think I'm not that
maybe
old.
Okay, yeah, good. Are we? Maybe we're roughly in the same generation.
We might be. I'm 52.
Okay, yeah. So we're very close.
Yeah.
51.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now that was the prologue. Now we're going to move into Chapter 1, meeting each other here.
Yeah.
So
we know a lot of people in common.
Yeah.
We know a lot of people. Owner Turkle.
Oh, you know Owner Turkle?
Well, I did
What?
That's a big story.
Dingalingless or even before that?
After that there was a film.
Pigs?
Yeah. That's what it was, yeah.
Oh, dear. I had never seen it, but I only heard
I know.
You were in the Pigs?
Well, I wish you wouldn't say the name, because when we say the name, it means people, and then I'm about to tell you it's the worst film I've ever been in. People are going to be, how bad could this film be? And they'll go, fine.
would own that. Even though
he'd be the first one to say it. He'd be the first one to say it.
I did not know this.
Well, yeah, this was around 2005, 2006, and I got just a straight offer by these two guys, Orner and Rob Longstreet, who I didn't know, whose work I didn't know, to do this film down in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Yes.
And I didn't quite get the script, but it was one of these years when I decided, well, I'm going to do everything people ask me to do just because I want to make movies. So that's that. And I talked to Rob, and he seemed really smart. And I thought, well, it's just this is always the wrong reason to make a movie. It's only 3 weeks. I'll just go down there. Maybe I'll have a nice time. Maybe there'll be fun people. This is never the right reason to do anything. And so I went down there, and it was a shit show. It was awful. But Rob Longstreet was this sort of great life connection that I made there. I just watched him work and watched him think and watched his sort of ambition he had. Still to this day, I think, has no agent or representation.
No, we talk about
he just floats above it all and makes his way in the world. And that was true of him at that time, too. And the movie was a horror show. But having said that, since then, I think Orner's done great work, and I really liked his vampire movie, and he and I went out for drinks last summer and sort of made up, and we're going to work together at some point.
Oh, great! I'm glad.
I think he's great.
Glad to hear that. Well, I did a movie with him too, which I don't know if you know about.
You acted in it?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
Yeah. It's called Richard's Wedding.
Oh, I remember that. I didn't see it. Okay. I read it. I never did see it.
I don't even know why I was cast, but in that interview with
Are you
Robert,
an actor?
No, I'm not. No. I'm sitting with an actor, but no. But I can act, but I would like to do more of it, and but it's funny how. Anybody who listens to this podcast regularly will just think this guy's done one film, yet he manages to crowbar it into every freaking conversation. And I really don't. It's just that it comes up. And I think it's also the circle of people. But I thought of you as a guest, and I'm not just saying this, it's true, almost from the beginning of when I was starting to get, I realized I need to get actors. And I always felt like one of the things, since this was about indie film, is to pay homage to the contemporary generation of independent films, let's say, going back to Hal Hartley, as one of the pioneers. And in there is you, Bill Sage, and Parker Posey, and Martin Donovan, exactly. All these guys. And I haven't actually done a great job. Yeah, Bill Sage has been on, but it was part of a few people. We become pretty friendly, actually. I posted some screenings in a film series I used to do, and he came with Lorraine, his wife, a few times. So that was nice. And so to get on actors from those films has always been, for me, a treat, the idea of doing that. So I wouldn't know, years later, I never knew you were in Owner's film, so it's just kind of strange no matter how far I feel like I'm throwing myself. It still manages not be a degree or two of separation from.
It all comes back to Orner.
It always comes 1 or 2 degrees, or Longstreet.
Yeah, or Longstreet. Certainly.
He really is ubiquitous.
Well, he got me a job this year in The Missing Girl, and last year in another movie called Sabbatical. He just sort of. That's right. He has when he works so
Colvin's
much.
Film.
Brandon, yeah. When when he's working, and if there's something in it for me, he says to the director, "Why don't you put Tom?" And they say, "Well, no, sure, that'd be good." So then. And I get to hang out with Rob, and who I just admire so much. Septien is just, I think, astounding. That performance in Septien, oh my God. And I don't know Michael Tully, but I wrote him a letter because that movie, oh my
Isn't
God.
It? I agree with you.
Funny in a way that is so unusual and hard won. I just thought it was a beautiful piece of work. I didn't see Ping Pong Summer, but I will. I know it's very different. But,
but Robert has a very
I've heard
memorable.
That with Amy Sedaris, right?
Yeah, it's classic. Yeah, I agree with that. And right around that time, Robert, while we're discussing Robert, it's a mystery, but he also did know Cataclysm.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Okay, yeah, I have a copy of it. Maybe I'll try to get it to you. But I think you'll also appreciate him in that.
He's just a great actor. He's a great actor, and he's got he's our age.
Right.
And he's got qualities about him as a person that I find really encouraging. He's not angry about what he hasn't got. He's optimistic about where he's going. And he is excited to meet new people and do new work. I tried very hard to get him a part in Ned Rifle, the third Henry Fool movie.
Yeah.
And he almost got, Hal was very open to it, but he ended up casting Martin Donovan, and you can't fight a tidal wave. It's like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And Martin's perfect, so.
Yeah. But he would have been a good replacement or a good substitute. You're right. But Martin Donovan, I think makes perfect sense.
Rob would be great in one of Hal's movies.
Maybe it's a nostalgic streak, but to go to see Ned Rifle, I can't wait to do it. And I was in Toronto, but I just couldn't make it work, or to go see it. But
I think the plan is that it's going to. I read what I'm very confused. It's a new day, Adam. I don't understand this Vimeo, and we've got a deal that we're going to open it in theaters and Vimeo on demand at the same time.
Well, that's sort of like VOD, only it's just digital. I mean, it's just a digital platform, day and date type thing.
I just hope that it's day and date.
I think it's a wise way to go. Because,
that's what's happening.
Because you're only going to open it up in New York, LA, I guess.
5 cities.
Toronto, you could do.
Toronto, maybe San Francisco, Chicago.
I mean, when is that happening?
April 1st.
April 1st. So maybe what we can do is, because there is time, is maybe what I could try to swing somehow. And if Hal's, I think he knows who I am at this point. I've had him on a few times now, but I don't know. And I'll work with maybe Ted Hope on this too. Is to maybe I can get everybody
a little bit of a group.
Yeah.
Some of these actors are in California, but maybe Aubrey will be coming here to do press for it.
Aubrey,
because Aubrey's,
what about Martin Donovan? He's in LA.
He's in LA, so I mean, I don't know what his schedule is. But Parker's here, of course, and Liam, and
Yeah, but even if it was just like Hal, Parker Posey, and Liam and you, that's a dream team. Let's go back in time. Where are you from? Tom?
Pittsburgh.
I love that city.
Okay.
It's a great city. Well, I didn't grow up there.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is a different city now than it was in the 60s when I was there.
How is it?
Well, it was a steel town back in the 60s, and it was a rough town, and it really changed. I was born there and lived 6 years, and then my father had a job moving around different countries, so I grew up in Germany and in Canada as much as I did in Pittsburgh, but then I ended up going back there for school. I went to Carnegie Mellon.
You're from the countries of Canada, Germany, and Pittsburgh.
Yes, jawohl.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going back there for school, and it already had changed by this point. People tell me now it's a beautiful, very nice city.
Well, yeah, probably the first time I was in Pittsburgh was probably pretty recent, like in the last 10 years. So it's maybe it was already quite changed.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of that very most smoldering kind of. You think of these industrial towns are kind of a bit worn out. But because it was a steel town, was the economy pretty good shape out there?
At what point?
When you were growing up. I mean, you went the times that you were there.
I remember the 60s being great. I mean, I was a very small child. But I remember, I think Carnegie Mellon was at that time when I went there, around 1980 to 84, it was known as the computer school, which was a very mysterious thing for a school to be at that time.
Cards, little IBM punch cards, right?
Yeah.
And you just,
I don't quite know what those
C+ language.
Yeah, but it was really in sort of a tech school, and but also had a real arts.
Right.
I studied theater there, but I haven't been in Pittsburgh since the day I graduated. I never went back.
Your parents are...
Well, they've both passed away, but they continued moving around after that.
Okay.
I moved to New York right after Carnegie Mellon. I moved here when I was 21 to become a famous star or whatever kids think they're doing.
Mission accomplished.
But I really...
what year was that?
84.
Oh.
And I was living in the East Village in 84, which, it's like you were saying earlier about Midtown. Mm-hmm. You look back now, and that's an iconic sort of time and place.
Yeah, you didn't know it then.
No, I mean, Basquiat and Keith Haring. What did I know about any of that? I was scared and excited to be new to New York and living here. And I came to New York and tried to be an actor and failed pretty intensely for about 8 years. I really wish now that I hadn't moved here so young.
Mm-hmm.
I came very, very young. I should have done some other stuff for a while. I was never going to be an actor till I was in my 30s, really.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just like that.
Right. No, I understand. But but at the same time, maybe to be that actor and to come into yourself in your 30s, you have to do that thing in the 20s.
Probably.
If you had done something different, maybe you wouldn't have come into yourself till your 40s or something. I don't know. Hindsight. But when you started, I guess, more or less in your 30s of getting some traction, what was it had to be around then. You almost immediately then in that time must have fallen in with Hal and that group because...
Well, what happened with that was that I never really thought I was ever going to be in films or TV. Mm-hmm. I really knew that I was a theater animal and that was really what my whole career was going to be, such as it was. I got a little traction in the early 90s by doing some weird off-Broadway theater, and then Richard Foreman, who's a director. Do you know who Richard is? Yeah. Sort of the granddaddy of the avant-garde in America. He goes back to the 60s and the ontological hysteric theater. Very, very sort of extreme but beautiful theater he does. And he found me and put me in the center of a couple of his plays. And unbeknownst to me, during that period, Hal was a big fan of Richard's and going to see all of these plays. And he doesn't like theater. But those plays he liked, and he would go see one. There was one a year, and I was the star of a couple consecutive ones. And Hal was watching, and I didn't know that. Yeah. And
was he already a filmmaker of note?
Yes. Well, by that time, The Unbelievable. We're talking about 93. It was around
Trust
the time
had
of
already come out.
Trust and Unbelievable Truth had happened. It was around the time probably of Simple Men and before Amateur. And he was just sort of watching and taking note, I guess. We had a mutual friend, Lena Lowenson, with whom who's still a great friend of mine, and she and I did a play together the next year. And she said, Hal liked you in those plays. And I thought, oh, that's nice. Doesn't mean anything. And I'm flattered. And I met him briefly. Then I went off and did a play in a terrible production of a Shakespeare play somewhere in Maine or some shit. And I get a phone call, and it's him, and he says, I've got a part for you. I don't know if you do movies or have any interest in doing that, but I have a part I think you could play in my next movie. Mm-hmm. And I remember really distinctly getting off the phone and going out that night with my actor friends from the play to a bar and saying, I just hope I have a couple lines. I mean, I hope it's something they can't cut out of the movie or something that could stay in because it'd be really exciting to be in a movie. And then he sent me the script, and it was Henry Fool. And there was a sticky note on the top of the script that said you would play the title part. And I started to read this thing, and I started to shake. It was a movie for Clint Eastwood or something. I just thought, well, this just doesn't happen. I don't understand what's happening. Is this some prank? It was very weird. And then I had that moment actors have where I thought, oh shit, does he want me to audition for this, or is he offering me this? And I called him very nervously the next day, having freaked out at the script, because the script, imagine that writing is astounding. Mm-hmm. It's like an epic novel written in sort of a screenplay form. I called him the next day and I said, are you asking me to read for you or do you do whatever? He said, oh, no, I think you should do it.
Wow.
And so when young actors ask me how to get started, I'm like, well, I guess you should just wander around and this thing will fall out of the sky onto your head at some point, and it'll be the thing you're supposed to do.
Do the best work in the best work. Do your best work in the best work you can do.
Yes, and go where you're invited. And if it's not where you think you're supposed to be going, that might not be the final stop on the train. Yeah. Wow, so that and everything since then that has happened for me, even in the theater, I think has been influenced by the fact that I made Henry Fool. I think it's had a large footprint in my
It's life. A lot of people's favorite.
Of Hal's?
It comes up a lot. Yeah, I think, I think people always like early movies too, but when I talk to people, everybody seems to there's a universal.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But we're also fashion conscious about these things. I remember when I made Henry Fool, was preparing to make it, I went into my video store. Remember them?
Vaguely.
And it was a great video store, New York Video. It was called, on First Avenue in the 50s, around the corner from my apartment. And I said, well, I'm going to, I think I might be working with Hal Hartley. What movies do you recommend? And they all the guys back there said, well, anything from the early days when he was still on Long Island. They all resented that he was now making movies set in Manhattan.
Right. And he abandoned that, even though they were all in Manhattan. But something about the...
So even at that time, before Henry Fool had even been made, there were people who said the early stuff is the good stuff. That's the curse of great artists, I think.
Right.
So, but I'm glad people still like it.
So looking forward to seeing Ned Rifle.
It's really different than Fay Grim. It's got...
Which was
a very comic
second
tone
of the trilogy.
Yeah. It's got a very overtly comic tone.
So Fay Grim was kind of intense, I guess.
Well, it was an espionage thriller.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I really respected that movie. I'm not in it much. It's like Where's Waldo, sort of.
Yeah.
And but I remember reading it, and the idea, I thought it was very brave that in the first movie, everybody assumes that the character of Henry is a charlatan and making up all these crazy stories about his glamorous past and all of this. And that the second movie says, oh, no, actually, all of that was completely, literally true. Just the conceit of that seemed like a broad, brilliant stroke to me.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful because it kind of opens it up.
Pulls the wool out from the expectation of a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Ned Rifle focuses on the child.
Yeah.
Right? Who's
Liam Aiken,
same actor that was the child.
Boy, isn't he? And that was his first job, Henry Fool. And
this is a real Boyhood. This is the real deal because screw Boyhood.
Oh, I love Boyhood.
I'm just joking. We're not going to try to alienate Richard Linklater before I even get him on. I'm happy.
Well, he won't be listening to this one, I don't think. But I loved Boyhood. But I thought about it when we were making it. It's so fun. It's so interesting. I remember even making Fay Grim and being on the set of that in Germany and looking around me at Parker and James Urbaniak and aside from Liam, who obviously had grown from being a little boy, I thought we all looked exactly the same. I thought nobody's aged here. Everybody looks fantastic. And we looked fine, but then I saw the movie, and there's something beautiful about the way the camera just records how long you've been living. You can try to hide from the camera by doing any number of things, but you automatically look 10 years old. It sees the truth of where you are. And it's a gift, really, I think, to have these three films, one made when I was 34, one made when I was, 42, and one made when I was 51. I think that's...
Yeah, it is.
I'll always have that, and it is exactly that same group of people, and that little boy has grown up into being a fantastic actor and a beautiful face, and he carries the movie.
That's terrific. Yeah, like you say, exactly. I mean, even the notion of plastic surgery...
It's filters or fillers.
It only magnifies. It only embellishes.
Because then you see the need.
Yeah.
Then what the camera's recording is your desire to look different than what you
see an old person who just kind of looks strange.
Yeah.
And although you can do it, I suppose, a little bit more subtly, it's just most people just don't end up doing that.
And aging people are beautiful.
Yeah.
I think Parker Posey, now, is as intriguing and sexy and vibrant an actress more than she was in her 20s. If you've been watching the work she's been doing on TV, on things like Louie and stuff, oh God, that girl's I just adore her. One of my favorite actors, period.
Yeah. Unforgettable episode or two on that, right? She
at Russ and Daughters.
Right. It's true. All right, so are you? I know you continue to do theater.
Oh yeah,
that's still your sort of.
I'm in rehearsal right now for a play with Peter Dinklage and Taylor Schilling and Annabella Sciorra and Anthony Edwards.
They're all in one.
Yeah, we're all in this play.
Wow, it's quite a cast.
It's an amazing cast. It's an amazing cast, and they're all pretty cool people. So
Anthony Edwards actually until I guess his kid aged out. I think his kids went to the same school as my kid. I assumed he was in L.A.
No, he's been here for I think about 14 years now.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a great guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, he was always very that's odd. This school sort of tends just to get a lot of film people, and I don't know why, but it does. So it's still it's the most gratifying of the work.
No,
you don't look at it. You don't make a distinction. It's good work.
I'm really in love with filmmaking. I really, 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 really love making movies.
Really?
But I came to this year a point where the idea of waiting around for the next thing did not sit well with me. I'm getting older. I'm always getting fantastic offers in the theater, and I'm not in films. Mm-hmm. Television, they come, but even the good ones. I went and did a couple of days on this movie, Equals, that Drake Daramus is shooting and shot in Singapore with Kristen Stewart and Guy Pearce. Drake Daramus did.
Yeah, no,
you know Drake.
Yeah.
So the movies that he's done.
He's been on this podcast, but I had a guess. It was at Sundance or something, and somebody else interviewed him for me. But
he was a great guy. I showed up they just asked me to do it. Mm-hmm. It's like, what do you mean? I don't understand. With Kristen Stewart, this doesn't happen to me. So they said, well, come fly your first class to Singapore, and you're going to make these scenes. The script was great. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, of course I'm going to go do that.
Sure.
I get off the plane in Singapore. I go to my hotel. They bring me to the set, and there's Drake, a guy I have never met, don't know, and he said, we're so excited to have you. Me and my DP studied Henry Fool in film school.
I thought he was going to say it's the Foreman plays.
Oh, right. Wouldn't that be funny? No, this guy's 30.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody who gets money to make big movies in Hollywood's 30 much now, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
No, I really love doing that work, but I don't, when you're a working actor and you're doing theater, you are actually working maybe 9 months out of the year. I mean, working every day, going to work. Movie acting is very strange that way. It's like you don't have, unless you're Tilda Swinton or somebody, you don't have you don't make your own schedule. You go through periods of unemployment, and then suddenly you get something, and it's 3 days or it's 3 weeks. And
also, I mean, the difficult part about that is that there's a little bit more desperation usually, so you may become less discriminating.
That's absolutely the case.
So
that's been the case for me.
Yeah.
And so I've decided, one of the great things about getting older too, Adam, let's be frank, I don't feel quite the ambition that I felt as a younger man. Mm-hmm. I am grateful for where I am and the people who do want to work with me. And in films, I'm beginning to feel like I really want to work with people who have a real idea of how to work, what they want to do with me, but they're not just to be plugged into sort of day player jobs like, and I've done some great ones, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and this thing with Drake and Bagger Vance and other things, but I just would like to play really more great parts. And in lieu of that, I'll play great parts in theater.
So you did Bagger Vance. Was that Redford?
Yes.
You see, what was that like?
It was a little depressing. That was the year after Henry Fool had come out, so everybody who represented me said, we really need you in a studio movie.
Yeah.
It's the first order of business right now. And I thought, okay, I don't know anything about this. And so, I could get the auditions because it was that kind of moment for me. And I knew Redford's daughter, Amy.
Was she involved in Sundance or something?
She was. Mm-hmm. And so I knew her through there. And I'd met Redford. And it was this big classy movie, a big Hollywood Oscar-y kind of movie it was going to be. And they said, well, look, the part is small, but it's spread out through the movie. They're just going to buy you for 4 months, and you're going to move down to Georgia and live in a beautiful place, and they'll use you when they use you. And it became like organized loitering. I mean, I basically they'd say, come in today, and I'd go in and I'd sort of watch people play golf, and On a good day, I'd have a line.
What was your role?
I was the manager of Walter Hagen, who was one of the 3 main golfers. So I had a whole dialogue scene. I had whole dialogue scenes that even as I was shooting them, I knew would be cut from the movie. Who's going to keep the manager of Walter Hagen having that conversation? Charlize Theron, and before anybody was really like...
Charlize Theron.
Yeah, before... And Matt Damon.
And Will Smith. Matt Damon, right.
So it was just one of these kind of big deals. And at the end, I was like, oh my God, this is just... it was really tiring, and it was really... I knew I wasn't going to be in the film. As opposed to
I just remembered, by the way, while you're thinking, Drake Doremus, I think he also directed Breaking Upward.
Yes, I think so, yeah.
That might have been the first one that kind of launched.
Yeah. And then what else? What were the 2?
That's the thing,
subsequent,
I'm stumbling on it.
Yeah, I just keep forgetting. Both of them had Guy Pearce in them, though. I remember that.
Oh, right. So he did... the one where the guy, he falls in love with the British girl.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I did Eternal Sunshine, and that was like the complete opposite. Well, that was like the most exciting,
right? Oh my god,
extraordinary
Michel
experience.
Gondry, he was on this podcast.
Was he?
Yeah. I still can't. When I listen to it, I don't understand a single word the guy said. No, I'm kidding around. He was fun. He was actually really cordial. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I found him very, very sweet.
Yeah.
But here's a bit of trivia for you.
Okay.
I replaced somebody in my tiny part in Eternal Sunshine, and do you know who it is? It's Tracy Morgan.
Oh, that's...
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Tracy Morgan, from Tracy Morgan to me.
That's quite a change.
But that was so exciting, just doing that. All of that in-camera effects and everything that he was doing, and we were shooting with 2 handheld cameras. I never knew where the shot was. Coming out of Hal Hartley, that kind of shooting was just so exciting for me. There was no locked off shot. You didn't know when it was your close up. You didn't know. Oh my God, I had such a good time doing that.
Trying to remember the part.
I play Jim Carrey's neighbor.
Okay.
And in the beginning, he's at his mailboxes and going through. Valentine's Day is coming or something, and I say, "Oh, I never get any invitations for Valentine's Day." And then we have a whole conversation. Then he goes to bed, and then he dreams, and in his dream he remembers this conversation, but slightly altered. And so in the dream version of the scene, they just moved like a scrim, like in the theater, in front of the lights between the camera and us acting in the scene, and just shot it in this weird way that looks like some sort of CGI or something, and it's really just some cheap, effect.
Yeah.
That was what that was like.
Wow. Did you talk at all to Jim Carrey during the? Was he?
Yeah.
Nothing deep. It was just.
He's I can't
he's
say
Canadian,
that.
so he's got to be a nice guy. I'm sure.
He was very nice to me. But that was. That was a moment. One of the first times I was ever on a set with a star, where I realized, the star is running.
Yeah.
For as much of a visionary as Michel Gondry
really
is, I sensed this sort of
play and in play.
Not play, but power. Power is like a thing that you can just smell on a set, and
yes,
even if somebody doesn't wield it and gives the director their full space. It's always interesting to me that you can just sense where the gravity of the power is, whether it's with a producer or whether it's with a star or with a director, and you and how people accommodate each other's power. It's not even ego always. It's just,
I'm sure, because, there's all these people on the set, and it's obviously their body language and, who approaches whom and how things are brought to, like a Jim Carrey or a Michel Gondry. There's a lot going on there. What I mean, in terms of the politics.
And I think now looking back on it, I think that he was risking a lot in that film, Jim Carrey. I think it was sort of a vulnerable position that he was in, shooting that movie, and he did a hell of a great job.
No, it's a phenomenal film. That's another really seminal film in the kind of. For a lot of people, a lot of people really look to that film also as I think like their favorite.
It's one of mine.
Yeah. On the other, I had him on for Is the Man Who Is Tall Happy? So it was quite the same.
Wait, what's that?
That's his documentary about
family?
No, that's the one about his aunt, you mean?
Right.
The French aunt? No. This one was about the philosopher.
I remember that film.
Yeah. It was out like 2 summers ago, 2 falls ago.
Yeah.
Like around the maybe even 1 year ago. He's very prolific, Michel Gondry.
Yeah, he also sticks to his guns. You know, there's I had a friend of mine who's French was talking about, he's never really made another great film, and I thought, my God, you know, but look how he's true to himself. Anybody who stays that true, he's never. Has he really gone to Hollywood and sort of done something on somebody else's
terms? No, it's been on his terms, and if it you know, between just the fact that it connected with the audiences and the fact that Jim Carrey was in it, you know, a lot of people saw it.
Right.
I mean, Jim Carrey could have been in it like he's been in several other movies, and people saw it but didn't like it. But this was,
and it was a Charlie Kaufman
script, right? So that's pretty amazing too.
But he's done beautiful work, and he's done really weird work, but he's a beautiful, weird guy. So that's the kind of work you would make.
Yeah, and I also think it seems like this very, I don't know, like a bizarre way to gauge things, like, you know, that the expectations always have to be up here. Like somebody who goes in and just makes a bunch of great films and continues to make films in their own voice. The last one I just sat through, I wasn't crazy about it. It seems like it was so busy with his special effects that
with yes, Roman Dury,
right? Who I see most of his films.
Yeah.
So that trilogy, for instance, that he did. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. I like him a lot. He's an actor I like a lot.
Yeah, but he can be kind of precious, as they like to say, or something. I mean, you know, or the projects, you know, like Audrey Tautou it's an interesting match because they kind of both can fall into the same kind of cute way of doing cute things. You know, they're both small and cute and have nice smiles and charming, and then pair them up. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
but it was this like almost homage to doing a more typical French film, but then it's very untypical. It's very Michel Gondry and, you know, pretty much animated. I mean, it's.
Well, I always think it's such an American thing to feel like there's something just wrong with you if you don't want bigger,
right,
or more.
Yeah. Right.
I think Hal suffers from this very much. You know, what do you mean that you don't? You never wanted to make bigger films,
right, or
reach a wider audience, or what? That's just un-American. I think we would accept it more from a foreign filmmaker.
Yeah, well, that's what
as an
doing.
American, you just don't you want to direct commercials? Don't you want to make a lot of money? Don't you know? So when I discuss Hal with people, which is what people usually talk to me about with films, I'm always saying they're like, oh well, you know, so marginal and all, and I go, well, you know. If he were a visual artist, would you have a problem with the fact that his audience is particular and small? You know, small.
Right.
That wouldn't bother you if he was a painter, would it? You know, would that be so much a part of the discussion? The idea that you would not be straining to get out of where you are into a place bigger.
So, yeah, he's in this ghetto. In other words. Of films.
I don't think he would think that, but I think
but I'm saying that's the way we kind of phrase things. That's the way we kind of position things. And I do like a filmmaker like Pedro Almodovar, for instance. He's essentially making the same film. I mean, same type of film over and over. You know, in variations, and then there's once in a while something a little different. But and I mean, I don't think anybody holds him to those standards. But in America, we seem to do that with our American filmmakers.
Yeah. Seems like it to me. Have you talked to Kelly Reichardt?
Yes,
I'm such a fan of hers. Oh my God!
Did you do any of her films?
No.
Okay, we'll work on that. Right?
My God.
It's interesting.
Old Joy. Oh my God! Old Joy.
Well, I'd like to get Will Oldham on this show.
Yeah, well, he's just great.
I think I'm getting closer to that because. It just seems to me that I'll get him on eventually. Somebody did. Who was it? It wasn't Robert, was it? It's terrible.
I don't think Robert has, because I think I would know.
But yeah, he's another one. But I did, I had her on with Night Moves, and it was another example of when I had another example of this thing going through a publicist, so having very little time. It's interesting because I had on Peter Sarsgaard, too, but separately. I could interview them separately or together, I think was my choice, and I chose separately because I wanted to have Kelly by herself.
Of course.
Who I met a few times before. She knew who I was when I got there, but I don't think she, I don't think she's probably like those press days where they go and I don't think she likes that kind of thing, is my guess. And I came in and I don't like it either because I know I'm just one of a bunch of people that they're talking to. But I thought having the advantage of being, like she knew me a little bit. But she knew me, and then we sat down, and we had like 15 minutes or something. And I really been pursuing getting her on. Like I really wanted her on I thought I got to get Kelly Reichardt.
Of course.
Yeah. And then we had like 15. I didn't even get to Night Moves with her. I talked to her about her childhood, and we never. And I said, "Don't worry, I'll plug Night Moves. Don't worry." And then I gotta find this file for you. But I asked her to do that thing where you say this is Thomas J. Ryan, and you're listening to Filmwax Radio, that kind of thing. And I asked her, would she mind doing that? I don't think she wanted to do it, and she ended up like going off on doing this strange thing. I can't quite recall it, but I got to find that and play it. I still use it sometimes because it's kind of funny, but she just sort of almost like
I'm
sabotage.
Sure you're not the
that.
only person who's going to ask her to do that. So
I don't know. Anyway, I think she enjoyed the conversation. I think she was surprised, and then we just got interrupted, so I never even got to talk to her about Night Moves because we were just kind of got through her young adulthood. We didn't make it very far into it, but I got a good understanding of how she ended up being filmmaker, but also making this particular types of film she makes. If you know how she grew up and the type of life she had, you will understand why she makes these particular stories. So it was a great opportunity, but I would love to, really have a longer chat with her. So I'll have to go up to Bard.
Boy, she would be worth it.
Yeah.
I'm so enamored of her work.
I think you'd be great in one of her films. I think you'd be great temperament for that.
I would really love to have that opportunity. The thing that, the Hal movies, my favorite movie I did with Hal is none of these Henry Fool movies.
Wasn't she in?
She worked with Hal in the early days.
That's right.
Yeah. I made a movie with Hal called The Book of Life. Do you know about that movie? Yeah. That's my favorite Hal movie that I've made. More than the Henry Fool films.
Okay.
And that movie...
Newsbreaking.
I love that movie. Love that movie. That movie with P.J. Harvey and Martin Donovan, and it was an early just digital movie. Really simple. It's like candy. It's like beautiful small piece of work. That has nothing to do with Kelly Reichardt. Because you said I should be in one of her films. I think that if people know me, like she would know me, if she knew me, she'd know me from the Hal's movies. And I'm just really verbal in those movies.
Oh, I see.
And I don't think her characters are always very
articulate. I think you're overthinking.
I always think that's why people like that don't work with me, because it's like, if I need somebody to talk 5 pages of dialogue, I could use him. But, those dudes in Old Joy, who just hang around and drive the car. Yeah. I would love to do a film like that. I would really deeply love to do it if I was with somebody I could trust as a director.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of film those are the kind of films that look like easy, and there's a lot of kids out there trying to make films like that that don't really have an authorial voice the way she does, and a reason to be doing what she's doing that is very strong and potent. So I was on the jury of the Boston, I don't even know does it still exist, the Boston Independent Film Festival.
Oh, sure. Yes, it does.
Oh, my God. About 5 years ago, I was on the jury of that, and they were the most incredible fucking movies. I couldn't pick. I said, guys, I don't know because I can't eliminate one of these films. The movies were Ballast, Mama's Man, Medicine for Melancholy.
Mama's Man too. Oh,
Jesus Christ! This was 2008, maybe.
Yeah.
And I thought, who are these one after the next.
Yeah.
I mean, I just named 3. I mean, those 3 movies are so different, and those 3 movies are so sophisticated and strong in what they're trying to do.
Right.
I have friends in San Francisco, so I went out there and I said, can somebody make me meet that guy who made Medicine for Melancholy? Do you remember his name?
Oh, shit. I knew you were gonna ask. Yeah.
Shoot.
No. Yeah.
Just a beautiful filmmaker. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's made a feature since. He's made shorts and done
I think
things.
he has something new.
Oh, I hope so.
I think he has something new. I think so. Yeah. He's definitely one of those, like kind of become like a bit like a legend just for making one big, one really important film that really connected with a lot of people, also. And Ozzy Jacobs made Mama's Man. He was one of my in the summer camp that I grew up, and then I became a counselor in the same summer camp. It was moved up to Vermont from upstate New York to Vermont, and Ozzy was one of the camper. He wasn't in my bunk, but he was a camper, and I distinctly remember him. So I finally got him on because now he's directing an HBO series. So he kind of co-created this Doll and M series, but. He made Mama's Man, and I saw it because of him, and I heard that he was making films, so I got a copy of it, and it just blew me away. I was very moved by that film. By the end of it, I was in tears myself. I just thought it was really powerful.
And those are his parents, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And this was before Tiny Furniture, and to me, there was a direct link there, very similar thing that was going on in those 2 movies. But so anybody who loves Tiny Furniture should go check that out. Azazel Jacobs' film, Mama's Man. Nobody else has brought that movie up.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep after watching that movie. It really made me very sad, and it made me laugh. And I almost didn't vote on the jury because I thought, I don't know what to do. I mean, what am I supposed to decide, that Ballast is a better movie than Mama's Man, which is a better movie that And when I got the gig, I was like, "Oh God, there's going to be some bad movies up in here." And I was so wrong. There's so many talented people making films.
So, and who directed that one again? Ballast?
Which one, Ballast?
Do you remember?
No, I don't. But
Keep
I
putting
remember
each other
the
on
movie.
the spot. Next time we do one of these, we'll have to have
IMDb close by.
We'll have to have it, constantly running because our our early 50s memories are...
I know, it's true.
It's not,
but do you remember
But I have off days and good days with that.
I do too. Do you ever walk down the street and you see somebody coming towards you and their face brightens up like they're going to go, hi! And you're like, oh shit, here comes the moment. Yeah. Who is this now?
Right.
And they get close and you sort of know that you did meet this person somewhere, but...
Right. But it could just be somebody who, like that one weird, strange... Once in a while, I'm sure, a couple of times a year it happens where somebody just recognizes you from your movies, right? And then is thrilled.
A couple of times a year, Adam. It happens every week.
Does it?
No, it doesn't.
I mean, I can't. I have no.
But it happens. It happens sometimes. And so that's the first thing I think is, but that's a different look. That you can tell that pretty quickly. That looks like its own thing.
It's a little sheepish, kind of like...
It's like I don't want to look, and then is it? And then no, I'm wrong, and then they look back, and then they look away, and but there's that. But the ones who come up, there's other ways, like what everybody has when they're our age. The people come up, and they're like, oh, and I just think, and you go, oh, hi. And you just don't have a fucking clue who they are.
Yeah.
And the conversation ends and they walk away and you still don't know.
Right.
And then sometimes the next day you go, oh, that's who that was.
I wish I remembered that. No, but I do I meet so many people too that...
must happen all the time to you. Must happen all the time to you. Going to all these festivals.
If you're listening and you think, and we've ran into each other, this is my disclaimer, it's not you. Trust me. But all the time. Like, festivals, screenings, and I'll go, and people... or it's somebody I've met in 3 or 4 times. I do know them. I know the context, but I can't recall the name. And it's like, I just ran out of hard drive space. I need, I cannot. I have a hard time with names now, and it's terrible because yet people, they have this thing. Oh, you're incredible, like recall and memory. And I guess on some level, it's probably true. It's just that I even for me, I can't do it that much like today. It's just one of those days where I'm just not being able to.
Well, I don't know who made that movie, Ballast, but it's the one we voted for ultimately.
Yeah.
It won that festival, and it was a gorgeous movie. Boy, that
was a really
special.
That I would have voted for that too, I think. No offense to anybody else, but
yeah, what was I just going to say?
See, there it is. Essentially. It's actually a festival to Boston, the Independent Film Festival of Boston. I think I might go. I might try to go. I'm just curious. I want to check out. It's close enough. It wouldn't be a big deal. I have friends there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for me to go. And I also want to check out this year or 2015, of course. I want to also go to the Nashville. I hear very good things about it.
Oh, really? I've never heard. I didn't know that they had one.
Oh, yeah. Good festival, from what I hear. It's like every city's got, of course, a festival, right? But I
thought you were referring to the Altman movie, which is my favorite movie of all time.
Same, yeah.
And which I am probably going to go to see tomorrow night at MoMA.
Mm-hmm. They're doing the Robert Altman retrospective, the most expansive retrospective ever, I believe. Because they're including like a lot of his TV work.
Oh my God! I've made a movie with Karen Black, and I was like, this is Karen Black. This is Connie White from. Yeah. Now other people can have whatever associations they want with her, and I respect all of them.
5 Easy Pieces,
of course.
But I would say those
to
two.
Me, Nashville. I just it's my favorite film.
Yeah.
If you have those fantasy lists of who are the directors, living or dead, that you would work with or wish you could ever have worked with? That would be at the top of my list.
Robert Altman. Well, let me ask you a question, because I just did a John Anderson, the journalist. I just did a segment with him, and actually I posted it. Yeah, it's the current episode that's up, and we did this first. What I'm doing now, every so often, I'm going to do a show that's on auteur. Just a filmmaker with a body of work, and he chose Todd Haynes. Did you ever work with Todd Haynes?
No.
Okay.
No.
But would you maybe you want to come on and do the? Maybe we'll wait a few months. But it would have been great if we could have timed it with this retrospective. But maybe you want to come on and we'll do it later or next year or something. We could do it on Robert Altman.
Well,
you just have a conversation a little bit more.
There'd be a couple other people, not just me, though, right?
It could be. We could do it
because
that
I feel like I'm not a Altman scholar.
Well, these are a little bit less academic because I'm not that academic about it. In fact, I don't know that I did such a great job. I mean, John Anderson, it was still a fairly, it wasn't that, I'm trying to say, it wasn't quite so academic is my point. It was a very accessible kind of conversation. I mean, my show is not supposed to kind of be too erudite or anything about things like, fun movies. So ultimately it's just a kind of...
Boy, Nashville. Wasn't it Pauline Kael who said Nashville is an orgy for movie lovers? To me, it's like, oh God, every time. And
you keep going back, right? I mean, there's always more.
I remember the first time I saw that film was on network television in the mid-'70s when it ran as the ABC movie of the night thing, which is unimaginable to me now. It's kind of a radical movie. With commercials and
an assassination.
It's a big, long movie and with 5 conversations happening at the same time. I don't know how that worked, but... I came into the middle of I was flipping channels. I had missed the beginning of it. I came into the middle of it somewhere, and I was 9, 10.
Yeah.
And I just started watching this film, and I went, well, I don't know what this is, but this is more truthful about living in America than anything I've ever seen. This rings true to me in a way.
And then you had that thought.
I remember that thought very distinctly. Also, my mother came from the South. I had a lot of aunts and uncles from that world, and I had grown up in Germany, so I had come back to the States just then. Just come back to the States and then saw this. So you had
kind of like almost a second wind in a way of being able to
figure out what that meant.
Yeah,
what did it mean to be American, and what was sort of phony about Americans, and what was really admirable about Americans.
Coming in right at the tail end of the Nixon and Watergate and all that. It just ended.
I remember the summer that we came back from Germany. My mother being riveted that summer to the hearings.
I remember that too.
And I remember Nashville in that context.
Sure.
And I remember how I also thought it wasn't patronizing. That was the thing that even then I recognized, although some people would disagree with me and say it's very patronizing. I think that it's also very kind and that toward those characters and loving toward those characters.
Even though some of them are kind of on the surface a little buffoonish. Like, you could say,
and some
argue,
of the music is quite bad.
You could argue, right?
And some of the music is quite good.
There's the girl, right, with the one that comes in,
Suleen Gay.
Yeah, when she
can't sing.
She can't sing. I mean, so you could think that, but then he catches you off guard because we get to we kind of fall in love with her as much as anybody else in that film.
And what's untruthful about a person who can't sing trying to have a career in Nashville, or a person who can't act trying to have a career in Hollywood? Right. It's as ordinary as anything.
Sure.
And what do you see in that character? Or Lily Tomlin's character? Mm-hmm. Nothing even to do with the music industry, really. Yeah. I just think that movie is.
As you talk about it with such love, it really occurs to me that you don't need to do a career homage. You could just talk about that one film for an episode easily because there's so much there. And, it's funny because I do go back to it too. And in fact, yesterday or the day before yesterday, I actually ordered the Criterion collection of that movie because I don't own it. And I
have it in there.
I have the older version of it, but I'm like, wait, there are 3 discs here, and I think I just need to.
There's some good supplementary material on that thing that you're going to nerd really, out on. Yeah,
good. One movie that in one of the waves of Robert Altman returning to, as one does to somebody like that, you can have wave after wave of going back to him because he has so many films and he had several cycles of what he was doing. If you go back earlier, that Cold Day in the Park and a couple of other movies around then. He did a couple of things in Canada, and then he came to this. He had these different phases, but we know for that. Around the Nashville MASH, Nashville, right through the Western, the McCabe and Miss Miller. But it took me 2 or 3 times, but that became one of my favorites. McCabe, of course, and then. Ultimately, The Long Goodbye just ended up becoming my favorite film, and that was definitely something I came upon much later on in my 40s, I think. And I'm like, how did I not know this movie? But thank God I discovered it.
Bam did a Elliot Gould thing last year or the year before, and that's when I caught up with that film.
Really?
I had not caught up.
You had not seen it?
I think I'd seen it, but I found it a difficult film. Yeah. I saw it screened there, and I finally got... he's also interesting because there were times periods when he was just shut out of getting financing for films right after Popeye or so forth. And those periods when he adapted
plays.
He adapted plays.
Yeah,
and I really respect that. And I remember an interview with him when he was adapting Streamers or Come Back to the Five.
What was the one, the Nixon one?
Yes, the Nixon one.
Secret
something.
Honor.
Secret Honor. But they interviewed him at the time saying, does this feel like a step down to you? And he said, this feels like a step up. This is exactly, I just want to work in the theater. I just want to be associated with this. I just admire that.
And then he said, you know what, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to work in the theater, but I'm going to give one middle finger to the movie industry. And he made The Player.
And then he was back.
That's the irony. See, you did your Altman episode, and we just built it into the show.
Just did it. Yeah.
Because this is what it's like. You do look at it like this is exactly the kind of conversation. But, I just watched also on Netflix, I think, I guess. I just watched, there was a documentary, a newish documentary on Altman. Have you seen that?
No. Is it a good one?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
It's
pretty.
What can you say? When I become tired of, or I have a bad period of time working on films that I don't think are worthy or that I don't know, where I don't feel creative, I just look at some of those films and I look at the contribution of any actor in any of those films just to be part of the tapestry of MASH, which I saw again recently. We all remember that TV series, but my God, that film, it must have been just like kryptonite in 1970. Right. Nobody knew what the hell they were seeing. And so richly funny. And I like anybody else, I think of the people who inspire me, and that's somebody who really, really inspires.
I think that was Pauline, right? Who gave it her blessing. Was that? Am I right?
Pauline Kael,
I think it.
Which MASH?
Yeah, because I think it was start off cold. people weren't getting it and not seeing it, and then she wrote something possibly. I don't know.
I think
I'm remembering
that's possibly true.
And then it just had this huge wave, and all of a sudden, and then it became a cult film immediately. And
it also was like flat out popular.
Yeah.
In a way that Nashville never was, and in a way that McCabe and Mrs. Miller never really was. But MASH was a big, fat box office sensation, and it bought him a lot of time making these other films. Thank God.
And I would say, as far as that series, actually the first 2 or 3 seasons was damn good, and before it kind of got very sentimental and kind of didactic in its approach, and Alan Alda got the star power, and then sort of obviously, as we said earlier, took over the show, obviously, for better for worse. I mean, made a lot of people a lot of money, including an uncle of mine who represented Loretta Swit.
You're kidding.
So he made a lot of money on that show.
Good for him.
So, but I would say those first 2 or 3 seasons when, what was the actor that played the Colonel? First.
Yeah, of course. He was on game shows all the time, too.
Yes,
he was
McLean Stevenson. We'll see how we can edit out the middle part. McLean Stevenson had great chemistry with the guy who played Ritter, Gary Berghoff, who came from the movie.
Yeah.
Right, one of the only people, maybe. John Schuck, I think, came too.
John Schuck wasn't in the series.
I think he was at the beginning, yeah. I think Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper, John, he was supposed to be the lead, and I think for whatever reason, Alan Alda ended up gaining the popularity from the show, and so they switched the composition a bit. But
then Wayne Rogers quit, didn't he?
He did.
2 years.
Yeah. And then foolishly, McLean Stevenson quit.
I don't know, what was he? Well, he got a sitcom of his own.
Yes, he did, but it was not very good.
Well, no, it was like
it was really.
It was
80s.
Like a textbook case of don't leave the thing that's working.
Yeah, and I think he had that show for a while too, but it was just awful, and he was just so good on MASH and just the right.
Who played that part in the film again?
In the movie, I forget the actor's name.
It was somebody quite formidable. I can't. Robert Duvall. No, Robert Duvall plays.
He played the crazy one that was having an affair with Hot Lips.
Right.
All the casting for the TV show is pretty good, though.
Yeah.
But it's just that it lost its, Altman-esque character after about 2 years or something. And then once McLean Stevenson left, it wasn't very good.
Well, TV shows of that era that went on and on and on and on. It was like All in the Family. In the first 4 years, Jesus Almighty, there was nothing ever so good in the world.
No, it was amazing.
And then if you look at the last year or two, when they went on and on and on and on, and it was like, oh my.
Yeah, Edith didn't die; she committed suicide. I mean, because she just had it. It's the only way to get her out of it. Poor Gene Stapleton. She finally had to slit her wrist. There's no other way Norman Lear would have. No, but I kind of stuck with it a long time as a kid because I was just so enamored.
What, All in the
Family? With Carroll O'Connor as an actor. I just thought he was... But it also became very sentimental when he became less bigoted,
Yeah, it's a trap, right? Because you want to show more aspects to the character.
Right, you have to change.
You don't want to repeat yourself.
Right.
And you're doing how many ever 24 they do it a season or whatever.
Yeah, but that was an adaptation from a British series. But it's interesting because the British, they do it like 12 in and they're done. They go 2 seasons, they do 6 shows each, 6 shows or something, and then that's it. I don't care what the ratings are. I don't care how popular this is. We're done. And that is... it's that's a jagged pill because you're watching The Office and you're like, I would love another season of this show with such magic.
I had that experience with The Office.
Me
exactly
too.
That experience where I'm
like, but don't stop now. But then you're like, but it is so perfect.
So perfect that
it's a gem.
Just get out now.
Yeah.
And I never have seen a single episode of The American Office just out of my loyalty, and I've heard it's really good. Was really good, but I don't care. Those aren't those people.
Right.
To me.
Right. No, I understand that. And have we gotten off track? I don't think so. Well, we're talking
it's
about...
all the same track.
It is. It's true. So we're waiting for Ned Rifle in the spring, April Fool.
I think it's April Fool's Day.
April
1st.
Fool. So we'll come back and we'll do another, maybe hopefully something else with people that would be great.
Gang. Try to get Aubrey because she's just great. She was a trip to work with on that. Wasn't really familiar with her oeuvre, but I knew she was on that TV show. I'd not seen it. and Parks and Recreation.
Parks and Recreation.
And when Hal told me that she was going to do the part, I said, well, what? Because I knew she'd done some films. I said, what do you think I should watch to get a sense? He said, don't watch any of that. He said, watch her on YouTube doing talk show appearances. So I watched her like on Conan and on David Letterman and on Jimmy Fallon, just being interviewed, and it was her persona was so sort of. But the thing I thought was, well, is this the real girl or is this a put on? Is this like an act? And she's a quite genuinely wry and funny and deadpan in a very honest way.
Well, deadpan is the Hartley.
It's the Hartley
way
cornerstone. So
it is.
She fit hand in glove into that world.
Okay.
And
was she familiar? Did she know?
She went to film school at NYU.
Okay.
As a film student before any of the rest of it. So she knew the films.
Okay.
And she knew Hal, and she was really nervous and excited. I just wanted her to be a team player because we made that movie for. God, what was I reading? I was reading something today, an interview with Angelina Jolie, who I respect completely, and she made her movie the movie that's out now. And
Unbroken.
Yes, Unbroken, and she was saying, we really did it, for $1.50. I really had to shoot this thing on
$100 million.
$68 million.
Poor thing.
And I was like, well, okay, cool, but. We made Ned Rifle on Kickstarter for $300,000. Mm-hmm. So we really needed everybody to be, down in the trenches with us.
Sure.
And so it's a little nervous.
So you're saying you didn't have your own trailer? Is that what you're saying?
I didn't see a trailer even drive by the highway.
Yeah, exactly.
They
don't do well on dirt roads.
No. Oh, boy. It was, but I enjoy that kind of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy that kind of filmmaking. That's mostly what I've done. So I really enjoy it. I remember being on Bagger Vance the year after I'd made Henry Fool and one or two small independent movies, and everybody was waiting around. I was like, "Where's Redford? We're waiting to do the shot. Where is he?" And I asked somebody, "Well, where'd he go?" And he was making a sandwich. He was over there at the craft table making a sandwich. Everybody's standing. He was very nice. It was fine. It was just there was all the time in the world.
Right. He has no sense of budget or how the clock is ticking.
Well, there was plenty of time, and
So he's used to like working on whatever movie he's ever worked on, whenever it was. The money wasn't the issue.
But I think it has been since then on some of the films he's directed. I think he's had.
All right. Well, still. Maybe not like
not like in this sense, but I mean, for him, and I respect that.
And it doesn't matter because there would be no Sundance without Robert Redford.
You're absolutely right, and Sundance has been very good to me. Not the festival, but the Institute. Gotcha. I did last week my first voice in a animated film with Jason Schwartzman and Lena Dunham.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's going to be called My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea. And it's by this genius graphic novelist, Dash Shaw. And it was a Sundance Institute project.
Oh, my goodness. Now, you didn't do this with anybody, right? You did.
Yeah, I did it with Jason.
You were in the room with Jason?
Yeah, this was Dash's idea, the director.
Okay.
He said, usually people record these things on their own.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to have you come in. And you guys are going to do the scene like you're just doing the scene.
Some of them I noticed, overheard like on podcasts, some of the people that do these, and there are some instances where they do bring all the people in, or people in your scene, obviously, and you do it live together. And so you've got the animated film.
Yes, the animated film will be. I hate to say this because things you think are going to get into certain festivals sometimes don't. But I feel very strongly about that film, and that film called My Entire High School Sinking into the Sea, the animated film.
Yeah,
that'll be at Sundance next year. I'm pretty darn sure. Yes,
great.
Equals, the Drake Daramus comes out. Will be in either Toronto or Venice, probably in September.
Right,
but the movie hasn't been edited yet, so we don't know about that.
But they know that.
That's their game plan. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a good movie. That's a really good script.
And he's on the rise, Drake.
And The Missing Girl, I don't know what's up.
Well, I can tell you probably. My guess is it will be at South by Southwest.
That's where I think it should be.
I think if I were a gambling man, I would put my money on that.
That's what I think. Even on set, I thought,
yeah.
oh, I don't want this to be a Sundance.
No, I think. And then somebody wrote it like they that one could have just as easily gone into Sundance than not, and it just didn't. But I think it could have easily have. I mean, haven't seen anything else that's at Sundance. I can't, but I did see a rough cut of Missing Girl.
Alex is. I really like Alex.
Me too.
I think he's a real deal.
Sweetheart.
If you had a chance to talk to him,
yeah,
up there.
I was on the set and I interviewed Alex, Mike Ryan, Robert Longstreet, Alexia Rasmussen, and one other person, Michael Taylor, and so I just only put up Robert Longstreet. And the reaction was fantastic. The idea was to follow I did it on the set because then the idea was the next thing I would do is meet up with them all, or some of them, the key people, at their premiere. And then kind of to have conversations when the time was right about their distribution. So basically following the trajectory of an independent film.
Have you ever done that? Or is
no.
This a new thing?
This is the first time I'm doing it. Well, just trying to, do different things, and hopefully people are transparent, I mean, I think, like, for a producer may not want to talk transparently about their distribution strategy because maybe it could, backfire on them or something. I don't know, or they're embarrassed by something. I don't even know, but we'll see. So, but Mike is a terrific person and real visionary. I think Yeah. I think. Yeah. So we'll see. So I'm going to South by Southwest, banking on that being the premiere.
Good.
I'm pretty sure. I mean.
I think so too. Ellen,
yeah.
people should
see
this play I'm doing with Peter Dinklage.
I'm coming.
It's called A Month in the Country, and it's at Classic Stage Company in January and February.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I'd love to come to that.
Yeah, please come.
Thank you so much. And
my pleasure.
Let's do this again soon.
I would love that. We spoke very naturally.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It was not like pulling teeth.
No, except when we were trying to remember names for.
Yeah, well, we can look them up between now and the next time.
That's true. It's have like somebody like who does voiceover work just insert the names like, or do it through some
Bennett Miller.
Bennett. Maybe I can get Bennett Miller to do it. In fact.